What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's video. In my last video, I talked about JRPGs that were disappointing. These were games that I was just ultimately not resonating with, and they were games that I had high expectations for, but they just did not deliver. So with that said, I wanted to follow up that video directly with today's video, where I'll be giving you a list of 10 games that really exceeded my expectations. These were JRPGs I went into with low or very tempered expectations and came away surprisingly happy with my experience with them. These are all incredible games and should be experienced by any fan of the genre, so if these flew under your radar for whatever reason, then please be sure to give them a go. Alright, with all that said, let's jump right into it, and first up on the list, I have Live Alive. Now, I was a huge Octopath fan, and when this got announced, I was totally into the idea of trying out a new HD 2D game. The different stories looked interesting, but at first glance, it almost looked like several mini RPGs packed into one game, and although I heard great things, I like my JRPGs to build up over time, so I can connect with the story and the characters. Anyway, I picked this one up and gave it a try, and man, I'm glad I did. I love Live Alive so much, and it actually resonated with me in a different way than most games do. The very thing I was apprehensive about with this game was actually the aspect of it that I enjoyed the most. The character development, the pacing, and storytelling of these bite-sized experiences weaved together in ways I really didn't expect, and I was pleasantly surprised at how invested I became in this game. Live Alive has a really innovative structure featuring 7 distinct scenarios, each set in a different time period and location, ranging from prehistoric times to futuristic cyberpunk worlds. This diversity offers a rich and varied experience, with each scenario presenting its own distinct storyline and characters and gameplay mechanics. And with that said, gameplay-wise, Live Alive combines traditional turn-based combat with some strategic elements. The game also features a unique command selection system, which adds depth to the battles and encounters by allowing you to choose from a variety of different actions and tactics. It kind of is like a bit of a crossover of a tactics game and turn-based game in the way the different fights play out. I really enjoyed my time with this game, and if you passed up on it, be sure to pick this one up because it really is a great time. Next one on the list may be a little bit divisive, but that is Final Fantasy 13. I actually played this quite late because of all the negative discourse around this game. As a huge Final Fantasy fan though, I had to see it for myself. I'm not speaking for the entire trilogy here, but the original Final Fantasy 13 was great, and yes, it does take a long time to pick up and get going, but I finished it, and from a whole start to finish experience, I thoroughly enjoyed this game. Did it exceed my expectations? Absolutely. Mainly because my expectations for this game could not have been lower, and I came away extremely happy that I picked this up and played it. One of the biggest surprises for me, and it shouldn't be at this point with the track record for Final Fantasy games, was its visuals. Final Fantasy 13 still holds up and looks better than many games that release today even. The game has some incredibly elaborate cinematic cutscenes that are beautiful and immersive. The character designs are detailed and distinct. It just looks amazing, like it truly does. I also really enjoyed the story in this game. The game's storyline is intricate and engaging, following the journey of Lightning and her crew as they rebel against an oppressive government. While some people definitely criticize the linear nature, and honestly rightfully so, especially early on in the game, the narrative gradually opens up, allowing for you to explore a vast and diverse world filled with great side quests. Overall, despite its poor reception, I decided to dive in, and I really enjoyed my time with it. This is not the best Final Fantasy by any means, but it's a great game, and I'd say give it a go and see for yourself if you like it or not. All right, moving on. Next up, I have The Legend of Dragoon. I feel like this game is also a bit divisive. Those of us that really love this game, I mean really, really love it, and those that don't can't understand why we enjoy it. Look, for me, it might be more of a nostalgia thing. The PS1 had some great JRPGs, and I was getting really into playing the Final Fantasy games. I loved 7, and so I decided to pick up The Legend of Dragoon. My expectations were low. I mean, it's not Final Fantasy, but it's something new and different, so I thought I'd give it a go. I had so much fun with this game and loved it even more as I grew older and replayed it. One of my favorite features was its addition of Dragoon transformations, which allow characters to harness these elemental powers in battle. This added depth and strategy to the combat that I honestly didn't anticipate to be there, and it made each encounter quite dynamic and honestly pretty engaging and exciting. The game's storyline is quite good as well, with a diverse cast of characters. If you want to dig in, there's some lore and some secrets here and there. There were plenty of twists and turns in the story. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed uncovering the mysteries that the Legend of Dragoon had throughout the game, and I also enjoyed how the ending wrapped up and kind of drew everything together. Is the Legend of Dragoon perfect? No. Absolutely not. It definitely has its flaws here and there, but it is truly an incredible experience that feels right at home on that PS1. If you're a fan of JRPGs, especially of more of the classic kind of retro JRPGs that came out during the PS1 era, you should give this one a go. All right, next up on the list, I have Ys 8. This game is a ton of fun. I honestly didn't expect much from it, as the other Ys games, while good, didn't quite land with me in the way that some of the other JRPG series do, but Ys 8 is special. At the heart of Ys 8 is the fast-paced and fluid combat system, which allows seamless switching between characters and a combo-focused hook that really kept me excited for each encounter. The combat mechanics are intuitive and satisfying, and actually really quite easy to get the hang of, and once you get going, it's really addictive. The combat isn't the only thing that shines here, though. The game's narrative is equally compelling, following the protagonist and his companions as they become stranded on this island. As you explore the island, you'll uncover tons of secrets and encounter other characters. The storyline is surprisingly good, and I won't go into detail to avoid spoiling anything, but this is a really enjoyable game from start to finish. The combat, the story, the characters, everything comes together really well. If for whatever reason you passed on Ys 8, then definitely go back and play it. It is easily one of the best action JRPGs out there. All right, next up on the list is another action JRPG, but more of a recent release, and I can't stop singing the praises of this one. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink is absolutely incredible and blew away my tempered expectations. I came in understandably with quite low expectations for this game. It was in development for what seemed like an eternity. It is a franchise that is known for its mobile roots, and me being someone that doesn't really enjoy mobile games, I was expecting it to not land with me, honestly. But I was very wrong. This game is really well done. Once I picked this one up, I was very difficult to put down. The combat is so addictive. The variety of characters and the different play styles they all incorporate allows for a ton of variety in the action combat that I feel in most action JRPGs is really unmatched right now. I had so much fun learning new characters and playing through the game that I lost hours in long extended play sessions. The story leaves a bit to be desired for sure. It's short in length, but it doesn't waste your time. The pacing is really well done, and you never feel like it's overstaying its welcome. The story definitely shines when it focuses more on the characters than the overarching plot, but overall, the story felt like a means to get to the next combat encounter. Either way, I was thoroughly surprised by Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and I think anyone that loves action games should definitely give this one a try. All right, moving on, I have Star Ocean Second Story R. This was an absolute surprise hit for me last year. When it was announced, I had my eye on it as something I would potentially be interested in, but had no idea I would love it as much as I did. I haven't been a huge Star Ocean fan over the years, but I did play some of the game back when the original game released, and while I enjoyed it quite a bit, it didn't quite stick with me, but when this came out, I thought I'd give it a shot since it seems like, my type of JRPG. The art style is really what stuck out to me at first. It's done similar to that of Octopath and Triangle Strategy in that HD 2D style, which I really like, and the action combat used in the original is definitely upgraded in the remake to add some quality of life improvements and made the overall experience much more enjoyable. I really enjoyed the story, and the main characters, Claude and Reina, are awesome, and the dynamic between them is really interesting. And as the story progresses, the game got its hooks in me. I have a review up for this game on the channel, so be sure to check it out if you haven't yet. This one was one of my favorite JRPGs last year, so give it a try if you haven't yet. All right, moving on, I have Fire Emblem Engage. Now, I am a fan of Fire Emblem, but some games just don't land with me in the way that others do. I loved Three Houses on the Switch, but Engage seemed to be changing things up quite a bit. The game didn't get a lot of marketing or attention in the lead up to its release, and it seemed as if it was flying under the radar a bit and wasn't going to be as big of a release as some of the other games in the series. Essentially, in short, I wasn't coming into it with the highest expectations, but I love strategy games and I love Fire Emblem. Fire Emblem Engage actually gets a lot of things right though. It doesn't focus a ton on story and characters in the way that Three Houses does, but puts the majority of its focus into the gameplay. These honestly may be some of the best Fire Emblem maps I've ever played, and I had a ton of fun making my way through the game because of this. The story is not the most fleshed out, as I mentioned earlier, but something it does really well is introduce newer fans of the series to classic characters, and in turn, by doing that, appeasing older fans of the series by looping in those said characters. There's a lot of customization with the approaches to different battles, and I felt the game was challenging enough to force you to test out these different approaches. I don't like it when a tactics game is too easy to where you can kind of just roll through the game with the same approach and same party to get through the entire game, as it kind of defeats the purpose of these strategy RPGs. But you won't feel that here. Fire Emblem Engage is a great strategy game, so definitely don't let this one pass you by. Next up, I have Tokyo Mirage Sessions. I skipped over this game when it was on Wii U, but the re-release on Switch finally forced my hand and I gave it a try. I heard some people say it was a great game, but I just never really thought it would be one that would hit with me for whatever reason. The more I looked into it, the more I felt I was wrong about that. Tokyo Mirage Sessions is a unique crossover with the Fire Emblem and Shin Megami Tensei series. It's set in the modern day Tokyo. The game follows a group of aspiring J-pop idols who discover their ability to wield mirages, which are basically these like beings that are derived from the Fire Emblem universe. This is an Atlas game, so the presentation is top notch and absolutely incredible. The blend of Japanese pop culture and traditional JRPG elements creates a fresh and engaging atmosphere that really sets the game apart from other titles in the genre. While the game may not stick closely to the traditional Fire Emblem or Shin Megami Tensei mechanics, its unique blend of gameplay and stylish presentation offer a new and unique take on the JRPG genre. I ended up loving this game, and it's actually one I come back to every so often when I'm looking for a bright and upbeat JRPG. Alright, moving on, I have Persona 5 Tactica. We now live in a time where Persona is more of a mainstream series, and we have Persona 5 to thank for that. Along with that came a massive influx of spin-offs, all of which have their own charm to them. Persona 5 Tactica was shown off, and I had some reservations for sure. The art style was somewhat different and off-putting at first, and I didn't know how well Persona mechanics would translate over to a strategy RPG. But ultimately, I picked it up and gave it a try, and I'm really glad I did. Persona is one of my all-time favorite series, and I have actually enjoyed quite a few of the spin-offs. I really love Strikers, actually, and I don't typically enjoy those games. These heavy, beat-up, hundreds of enemies type games, but that one actually ended up being a ton of fun, and to my surprise, Tactica ended up probably surpassing Strikers as my favorite Persona spin-off. It took some time, but the art style landed with me and it eventually became a part of this game that I really enjoyed. I love the new music, the story is really well done, and the new characters are incredible. Most of all though, the tactics gameplay is really well executed. This game does an incredible job of taking the turn-based mechanics of Persona 5 and bringing them over to a tactics RPG in a way that feels natural and just makes sense. If you like tactics games and are a fan of Persona series, you really can't miss this one. All right, last up on the list is one for my PS Vita fans out there. It's Freedom Wars. This game is absolutely incredible, and I had no idea I would love it as much as I do. I picked this one up thinking it was going to be more of a Monster Hunter type clone or something, but I had no idea this would completely eat up 100% of my gaming time for months on end. One of the game's standout features is definitely the fast-paced combat system, which emphasizes teamwork and coordination. I mean, you'll be taking down huge bosses. It's a ton of fun. You'll need to work together with, you can use in-game companions or real-life friends in a multiplayer mode to complete these missions. The customization options for weapons and gear were great and ultimately added to that like addictive gameplay hook. Visually, this is one of the Vita's best looking games as it had detailed character models, dynamic environments, and really impressive animations, and it definitely pushed the limits of what the PS Vita hardware could do. This is easily one of the most slept on JRPGs out there. I feel like I would love a re-release or a remaster of this at some point, but until then, you will have to get your hands on a Vita to play it, and it's 100% worth it in my opinion. Well, everyone, that's it for my list of games that exceeded my expectations. These games are all great. I may not have thought so when starting them, but once I finished, I came away thoroughly impressed. Let me know in the comments below what games you think should be on the list. Also, I have a Discord for the channel, so if you like JRPGs, jump in there and say hi. I'll leave a link in the description below. And until next time, I'm out.